The dangers of psychics, astrology, and numerology. Let's talk about this. First and foremost, what are psychics? What's astrology and what's numerology? Well, in order to describe this, let me just give you some insight into my background with all of this, okay? I come from a background of both not believing in it to begin with, as well as then eventually letting it heavily influence my life and my relationships, as well as my decision making. And for a period of about 3 years, I followed pretty much every new moon and full moon and the whole moon cycle. And I learned about the different zodiac signs, and I learned about birth charts, my specific one. And I also asked pretty much all of my partners during the time, yeah. And I asked them if they also could take it. And basically, what I was doing was that I was outsourcing my power to the cosmos instead of God. So I was, in a way, sort of placing my power into idols, into certain modalities and techniques in order to better understand myself, right? And as a result, I experienced synchronicities, and obviously, I read all of these things, which made sense to me. And there were other things that didn't make sense to me, but most of it did make sense to me. And as I kind of consumed more and more and more, the more synchronicities I began to see in my life. And I began working with signs and all of these things as well. And so I experienced these synchronicities, and that people told me exactly what I needed to hear when I needed to hear it. And I sort of felt very guided by, let's say, tarot readings, astrology readings. And the funny thing here is that I didn't see it at the time, but I became more and more of a slave to these different modalities. I literally felt as if though at one point I had to stay on top of what was going on in the cosmos, right? In my zodiac signs, especially. That was what I was most involved in. And the tarot readings were highly accurate, I'd say. At least some of them. They really truly influenced a lot of my decision making and very important decisions in my life as well. And so I always had to stay on top of not only my own sort of, you know, um, guidance, but I also stayed on top of, let's say, my partner's guidance. And I watched tarot readings for his signs and for other people in my life's signs to sort of better understand or be able to cope with what was going on in their life, in my life, in our life, and to better make decisions. And so you can already begin to tell how I was sort of looking outside of me to be able to discern, right? Um, and some takeaways from it all was that I actually ended up quitting my clinical psychology studies. I started a relationship that was sort of a trauma bond. I ended up cheating my way out of it, and I got into an accident. And I know in my soul, I truly know in my soul that it was partially because my world was centered around me, the planets, and not really God. And I followed idols and not righteousness, not what is right, but I was following more so all of these sort of modalities and wanted to stay on top of things. Hello, Isla, how are you? So I was always needing to stay on top of it in order to feel as if though I understood myself and I understood what was going on in my life, and I was able to make the right decisions. And it was all very outward focused, so to speak. And now I've gotten to a point where I no longer practice any of these things. I no longer am a slave, sort of, to all of these practices that I practiced for years and years and years. That I must say, yes, they had some utility to them. Definitely, let's say, for instance, practicing yoga and practicing just like movement and getting my energy going and all these things. And the funny thing here is that it's very sneaky how these modalities work, because they do work to some extent, but you do know that something is wrong when you feel as if though you become a slave to them, when you need to stay on top of it all of the time. That's how I'm able to discern now whether something is useful or not. So it should be more of like a tool and not something that you sort of need to stay on top of all the time. So now I'm in a place where, again, I don't practice literally any of it. I journal once in a while, and I pray during food as a form of thanksgiving. And none of that is really dependent on the moon. None of that is dependent on any of that. And here's the thing, too. When we're talking about, let's say, evolving your psychic powers, and we learn about these things also in psychology, how we actually have these abilities to perceive things that are not physically there, but we can sense even when someone's looking at us from behind that someone's looking at us. That's the subconscious mind. So we have, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind connected to the superconscious and God, right? But what's very sneaky about new age spirituality modalities is that you get into it, and you get into it as a form of a coping mechanism to cope with some sort of trauma from the past, to evolve your consciousness and to ascend your consciousness beyond literally this current reality, and to be able to pick up on signs that others are not, or to be able to sort of shortcut life in a way. That's at least how I saw it, to some degree. And the thing here is that when you meditate a lot and you have that sort of direction in your mind where you know what you want to attain, and it's your goal, it's you deciding where you're going to put your focus instead of just meditating on God, the love of God. It's very different. It can really open up your mind and your subconscious mind to all kinds of energies and also spirits. And I've experienced this myself. I also have a lot of people whom I know that are in the new age spirituality sort of world who are doing this too. But it's deceptive to some degree, and it's hard for them to see it themselves, because when you're in it, you're so in it, and you literally have to disconnect from the entire world to be able to do these things sometimes. And the question then is, why are we doing it? Like, why? Well, again, it comes back to it being a coping mechanisms. A lot of the people that I met in the new age spirituality world were literally just connecting with a philosophy of being a light worker, let's say, and being selected from some place in the cosmos to come here during this time and to spread the light. And it's having the belief that you have to then stay on top of the astrology, to look upon your numerology, and to incorporate all that you then learn and meditate 24/7 in order to ascend your consciousness. And it literally, if you look at the core of it, it must mean then that you deep down, you don't really know how loved you truly are for what you already are. And there's nothing that you can do or shouldn't do that will change that. And so everything really shifted for me, yeah, when all of the decisions that I made as a result of practicing these different things led me to having an accident. And I literally remember during the time that I had an accident, a lot of people around me who were in this too also had it. And I have a sense of why that is. And that is very much also because we were it was very centered around me and us. And also we literally ascended our consciousness so much that we kind of went up and beyond above our physical body. And when these things happen, when you're dissociating from your body through these different practices, and you don't know it when it's happening, when you then go about your day-to-day life, you are more in the spiritual psychic realm than you are here in the physical. And so it's very easy then to fall into experiences or come into experiences where you, let's say, then get into an accident, or where you are going to cross the road and you don't look to the right or the left. And very often too, it's a form of escape. It's a form of escape from normalcy. And it's a sense of thinking that you don't really fit in here in this world. And when you don't feel like you fit in here in this world, it's very easy to be pulled out and about through the different modalities that are out there now that give the sense of promise that if you just do X, Y, and Z, then then everything will be all right. Then you will ascend your consciousness and you will expand your consciousness so much that everything's going to be all right, and you'll be able to see through anything and anyone that comes your way. A lot of the people that come into this have a relationship trauma and have been deeply hurt and misunderstood. And so when you come into it, you're thinking that if I just do all these things, if I just have all these crystals around me, if I just put these on my different chakras and the energy system of mine, that will cleanse me. But here's the thing, the love of God does not demand anyone to put crystals on them to cleanse their energy system. See? So it's a fundamentally flawed perspective that I can see now that I've come out of it, and I have nothing to do with that anymore. And it's so liberating because you no longer need to stay on top of it. Because what is it that these things do? They pull you out of your network, out of your family very often. They pull you out so that you then come into a new sort of new age spirituality community where they practice all these things. And now you have confirmation bias going on, where you then begin to see other people do it and other people are supporting of it. And you go to all these different ceremonies, you go to all these different gatherings, which are community gatherings, which is what we need. We need community, but there's no sense of anchor to what the community is going to be about. It's just about the practice. It's just about the cacao ceremony. It's just about drinking the cacao and blessing it 100 times. It's just about gathering to have some sort of ritual for the new moon. You see, when we don't have religion in the sense of Christianity or the Judeo-Christian values in our society, what are we going to do? We create religions. We create our own practices and rituals because it is necessary to some degree for us human beings to have a grander sense of community. It is necessary for us to come together. But the question is, what are we coming together for? Are we coming together for the good of me, and me ascending my consciousness? Or are we coming together in love to support one another and to do it to honor God, the life force that is flowing through us and to us at all times? You see what I'm saying? This is where the flaw is at. And this is also where the answer is at. Where the problem is at and where the flaw is at, there's also a solution to it. And I believe the solution is, yes, it is community, but the question is, what are we communing for? What are we coming together for? And what is it based on? What are the values and principles that it's based on? Because we didn't have this, we don't have this in these different modalities and practices. There's really no like value system. There's no common ground necessarily. There's literally just a lot of people that would like to do good, but that come from trauma and that get sucked into this. So there's plenty of dangers, unfortunately, to psychics, to astrology and numerology. And I would say that it's outsourcing our power, the power of God, and it robs us of the ability to express gratitude to God. Rather, we express gratitude to the moon, to ourselves, to us being the manifestors, and it displaces us. It dissociates us from our bodies, and that is what happened to me. I know it for a fact. I know it. That's why I got into the accident that I got into, because I was so dissociated in a way. And so I want to, and I really truly feel called to just talk about this, to express my experience with it. And remember that what you might call the enemy, which is things that are deceiving, but that are appealing in its nature, it is appealing on the forefront. It is appealing on Instagram. It is appealing when you take photos with crystals. It's appealing when you lay out all these cards and you sit there and you meditate. It is so beautiful. It's appealing. And we're drawn to beauty, aren't we? But it is deceiving because it's not rooted in the truth, the ultimate truth, which is God, which is just the fact that you are love. And you don't have to abide to all these things to be deserving and worthy of that. And now, what I'm called to do is to help others grow in their faith so strong in the one and only, and to exit New Age spirituality practices, like mentioned here, and to have you also join the garden, to come into this community that are centered in and around truth, and that are centered around other things than all these modalities and practices, and to really just grow through this transition, because it is fairly traumatic, or it takes a lot of you to transition from one way of living and one lifestyle and one community into another way of living, another community, another set of values, another set of expressing yourself, right? So that's why it's so necessary to then be supported by others who might have gone through that or who are going through that. So that's why I created it. You can go to bloombeyond.com/waitlist to join. But above all, what really sort of saved me out of this was literally, well, that I experienced this graceful love, and it didn't come from outside. It came from like both inside and outside. It was like this enormous sensation of just grace and love. So there's no one that really can promise you any of that. It will come in your time, in your due time. But I really want this for you, that you can transition from these different practices too, because again, they hold some deception to them, because they are appealing on the surface. But when you dig further down and when you grow through it yourself, at some point you'll see that it's just yet another hamster wheel. It's just yet another like loop that we keep on running around. There's this carrot. Hi Noga, nice to see you. There's this carrot that we keep like chasing. So just stay aware of that. Whatever carrot is in your life right now, what are you chasing? Where are you outsourcing your power? See, so once you can begin to identify that and literally remove the carrot for a while, you will begin to see, once you remove the carrot, that you didn't need the carrot in the first place. That's the thing. You didn't need it in the first place. This area is so saturated, pushing us away from Jide and truth. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's saturated. It's pushing us away from the truth, from God. And there's an agenda there. There's literally an agenda there. And we can definitely discuss this in another setting, in another live stream as well, because there's so much below the surface that only truly those who have been a part of this community of sort, or this world, this new age world, because it's literally a bubble, can detect. And it takes some research too, actually. But there's some hidden dangers to it, and I just want to express that to have you become aware that there's only the one and only, and that is the life force that's flowing through you, that's not demanding anything of you. Truly, you don't have to follow all these new age, new moon, full moon rituals. You don't have to read, go on all these psychic readings and tarot readings online on YouTube in your sign, in your, well, I literally began doing that every single month. I did it every single month. Like January, February, March, I did like half year readings, I did full year readings. I literally sat with my journal and journaled everything out that was said. And what happens then is that you'll have some things really stand out to you and you'll remember them because your subconscious mind will have it there in the back of your mind. So you'll know this. And then you will begin to detect these things in your life, and you will not abide to truthful principles, but to what some psychic or tarot reader have said. So be careful, hey, of what you put on a pedestal and what carrot you're chasing in your life. So that's it for now. If you have watched up until this point, amazing. If you just came in, make sure to rewatch this so you get every single point that I mentioned, because there's a lot to this. And if you have any questions, if you're in this yourself or have been in this yourself, send me a DM. I'm here to serve and to help out wherever you are in your journey with this. So yeah, send me a DM. And obviously, you can also join the garden, the community that I have now that help you transition from wherever you find yourself within the New Age spirituality world and whatever practices you're practicing, and literally out of that to begin to come to truth, to come to the truth. But literally, this is a journey. I see this so clearly. It's a journey where you exit the matrix, you come into New Age spirituality, you come into the law of attraction and manifestation, and continuously just doing all these different practices to attain something and to achieve all of your dreams, right? It's centered around me instead of service and contribution. And then it kind of leads you eventually to God. And so you can come to like see the evolution here. So you can go to blueandbeyond.com/waitlist to come into the community. Sending you so much love. Thank you for being here.